So the cost of running government will continue escalating. But if we say the only position we recognize is that one of the speaker, Kwisha, any other person acting in a temporary position should not enjoy any other extra privileges.
But my understanding is that all these positions have been listed, and the Salaries and Remunerations Commission has broken it down which position should earn what. If at all there was a position of Deputy Speaker which is not accounted for by the SRC or the laws of the land, then surely someone should be surcharged. Senator Ole Kina, all county assemblies then should be made to account for why they actually came up with a position that doesn't exist.
You know what? I actually sympathize with the county assemblies, because there's no way you can expect the speaker to sit there, you know, every single day. What about if he falls sick? He definitely needs a deputy speaker, in my view. And the deputy speaker comes from one of the elected members of the assembly, or maybe nominated, in that case, whoever is chosen to be by the members of the county assembly. I think, in my view, what ought to be varied is the amount of remuneration that they get. That, to me, is the only thing that ought to be varied, because that person requires an assistant. Well, I think the court is right in declaring it unconstitutional. So to make it constitutional, we've got to come up with either legislation, or maybe if it can be amended, or the constitution can be amended to be able to create that position to make it right. But I think it is right for the speaker of the county assembly to have a deputy.
But if at all county assemblies have come up with this position that's not provided for in law, yes, probably it is necessary, but it's not provided for. It means county governments and these other institutions could have come up with other positions that are not provided for, and people are just receiving money, which is not even broken down by the SRC.
I tell you, you're so right. When I was chairman of public accounts in the Senate, I came across counties where the so-called the first lady draws a salary. In one instance, one was drawing 500,000 shillings a month, besides the allowances that they have.
As a county first lady.
As a county first lady. And another one was drawing 1 million shillings. So, because the Senate, and I want to urge my younger brother here, you have to be tough. You have to ensure that only the things that are necessary are the ones on which public funds are being expended. This only leads to wastage, bloated wage bill, and a higher cost of running the devolved government structure. And no wonder that in some instances, like in Nakuru, I came across one financial year, only 10% of the billions that had been taken to Nakuru had been spent on development. 10%. And 90% was just wasted. This has to stop.
Okay. And
I think, in my view,
what is the process of getting such a position created? If at all you realize it is necessary, it is needed, but it does not exist.
Of course, through legislation. That is number one. But I think, in my view, I'm of the contrary view, that what is really needed in county assemblies is capacity building. We've got to come to a point where, in this country, members of the county assembly can actually sit down, come up with legislation that will be able to help them deliver their mandate. And sometimes, all these problems we are seeing, like on the issue that I raised earlier on the municipalities, it is something which is advised by opportunities out there. You don't have to run for every opportunity, because you don't fully understand. If your stakeholders do not understand the benefits of those opportunities, then don't go for them. Involve stakeholders. So I think what we in the Senate are doing now, and I agree with my brother here, that we have to ensure that money is spent to what is necessary. But the one thing that we must do now is to be able to build capacity for those members of the county assemblies. We have done so. In fact, in our CPIC committee, we went to Mombasa. We invited all CPIC chairpersons and met them in Mombasa and discussed with them on the fiduciary risk. We told them that we are doing oversight, but you are the people on the ground who are also tasked with oversight. I think once we build this capacity of this county assembly, or members of the county assembly, then we'll be able to avoid these problems. If it is loopholes in legislations, we amend those legislations. We have to be sympathetic to the fact that devolution is still a baby. It is still coming up. It's now a toddler. I mean, it was born, it's now growing up. Pole, 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 pole. So we have to expect these challenges. But the only way to be able to navigate through these challenges is through capacity building and through legislation. Period.
I must add a thought. This decision that has been made, it has been made by a judge.
True.
A judge who thinks harder, long and hard about issues more than us. And therefore, it is in a highly considered opinion that he has made this decision. Senator, your worries about the work of the Speaker and how he is overloaded, you are assuming that the Speaker acts alone. That office of the Speaker, there is somebody there called the clerk. The clerk does most of the administrative work for the Speaker, and then once it is clear to the Speaker that they are moving in the proper direction, then they make a decision. For purposes of chairing sessions, all you have to create is a Speaker's panel, and when he is not able to, yes, amongst the members, when he is not able to sit, one of them comes and sits in and presides over sessions with a small allowance, as it should be. Okay. You see, when you encourage this thing, 3/4 of those speakers are just traveling around, and that's why they are not in the office, and therefore not able to chair sessions. When you ask them what they are going to do when they travel all over the place, they tell you they're going to benchmark. The people who need real capacity building are the civil servants of the county assemblies, to the extent that you have a clerk who can be able to tell an acting speaker that this is how to transact business.
Okay. I agree with you, and I know the work of the clerk. My biggest problem was on that ability to chair a session. A clerk cannot chair that session. And I agree, whichever way you look at it, the deputy speaker comes from the members of the county assembly. It is not a job, it's not someone who can apply for that job and come and act as a member of the county assembly. So you are right in saying that. Let us see whether that position is necessary, or if we have members of the speaker's panel who are actually also given an allowance, if that can take the position of the deputy speaker.
And that should also be included in legislation, that they receive that kind of allowance. It should be noted.
It should absolutely. Yes. I agree with you. But to the extent that you are limiting the chairing of a session to only that one person, is a human being.
Okay.
He can be able to, he can fall sick.
Yes.
So you want to tell me when he falls sick, there's no one else who can be there. The reason why sometimes it is necessary to have a deputy speaker is because that person as a deputy speaker, his capacity is built to make decisions. When you look at the Senate, for instance, when our speaker is not sitting, or maybe he's not in the country, the deputy speaker is there. And the deputy speaker is a former majority leader. And he makes decisions which are sound because he's quite competent. Sometimes when you just choose any other member, because that is not the job that they actually do, and they have not been, their capacity has not been enhanced, it makes it very difficult.
It waters down the quality of debate.
Yes.
The other headline on page 6 of the Daily Nation, now ministry puts cap on cost of governors' houses. The government has capped the cost of constructing governors' residences at 45 million shillings, with a stern warning that no county government should exceed the amount. For example, Kirinyaga County had already set aside 100 million for that house. Embu, 75 million. Kilifi County set aside 214 million. And 200 million for that of the speaker. Nairobi allocated 130 million shillings for the speaker's residence. Uasin Gishu 80 million. That story continues, just listing how much money has been set aside for the building of governors' residences. Now, this is a problem that will definitely end. We're not going to be building new residences for governors and their speakers every year, because once it's done, Any incoming governor and speaker will just occupy the same structure. But do you think 45 million is sufficient? Probably outside Nairobi, but what about Nairobi?
You know, the way I look at it, and maybe Mheshimiwa would have a different view, is that an official governor's residence is not even necessary. You know, we have our homes, and we've got to balance. We have our offices. I think what we need to be able to enhance is our county government offices. Because it is quite seldom that a governor is holding a meeting, an official meeting in his home. It is not like State House. I think what we ought to forget is that these governors are just CEOs. There's one president in this country. When we now start budgeting for these official, governors' residences, official speakers' residences, we are creating mini presidents. So I think for me, I'm completely against building governors' mansions and houses.
But it does make sense to have this. We used to have mayors' parlors, residences for mayors, district commissioners all over the country. Why shouldn't we have the same for governors? Precisely.
That was when those positions were open to members to civil servants who are not necessarily
from that area.
So that if you are transferring a DC born in Kakamega to go and work in Lamu, surely he will need somewhere official. But the governor of Kakamega will always be somebody born and bred from Kakamega. So what do you need is a proper county government headquarters.
Yes.
And then this servant of the people from Malinya can then drive from Malinya in the morning or use boda or walk and go to the office and work.
So even the 45 million, we don't need it?
No. You don't need it. Let me give you a real example. And this is a decision too little, maybe coming too late. We have a governor's residence in a place called Likuyani in Kakamega.
Built by the county government?
Yes. And every financial year, the control of budget has been allowing that county government to take 50 million shillings for 5 years for construction of that particular residence for the last 5 years. 250 million. And now, in the current budget, I've just read it, of Kakamega, they are now asking the county assembly to approve that a similar residence now be constructed in Lurambi constituency. The other one is in Likuyani, now Lurambi. For the same governor. I don't know whether they are imagining that he's a polygamist or future governors will be polygamists. I do not understand. So the point must be very clear. Governors are servants of the people. You are not going to create some big African man simply because he has become a governor. For God's sakes, after 10 years, the guy will be gone.
You have ambitions of becoming governor. You've run for that office.
Yes, I do.
You don't think you would have a need for a residence as a county boss?
Now, why?
Even in terms of specialized security for you as a governor?
Ask me, why would I not want to sleep in my humble home in Malinya to go and sleep in some concrete structure in Likuyani, where I can work up to 6, and if I'm got up in Likuyani, after 1 or 2 hours, I'll already be in Malinya. So it is superfluous, it's a waste of public funds. And by the way, even if we must construct these structures, Honorable, and I will never support construction of governor's residence. If we must, if they are fighting corruption, if there is a problem, that is a problem, then the construction of those buildings should not be left to county governments. The national government should design one house meant for the entire country.
It should be uniform.
Uniform, and then the national government constructs that house.
Let me just weigh in on this issue. I think what we ought to be talking about is the welfare of these governors after they leave office. Because when they're in office, they have the luxury of a lot of free things that comes in with their position. And that is why they feel like, for me to become governor, I want to be able to have this home. Let me tell you, the biggest problem we have in this country is that we don't care about tomorrow. We only care about today. So what we ought to be doing And this is what we are doing now. Like my bill in the Senate talking about the retirement benefits of a designated state officer or the deputy president, I'm actually thinking of incorporating the governors, the judges, to think about their well-being after they leave. Because you are living in this 100 million shilling house, 45 million shilling house for 5 years. And then maybe the people of your county decide you're not doing a good job, you know? In fact, you should serve the people. You should not be a mini God. Your job there is to serve them. So live comfortably, have a balance between your personal life and your office life. Because the biggest problem we have now in this country is that most governors, most senators, most members of parliament, they have no balance. So once you leave that office, two things happen. One, of course, your phone stops ringing. Sometimes you even wonder whether you've actually charged it because nobody's calling you. Number one. Number two,
left,
office. I've not had his phone ringing. I've been sitting down here with him. But if he was still there, you know, or maybe he has put it on in a silent. But the truth is, you have to find a way to balance your life. You know, like for me, I'm very, very clear. I work from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the people of Narok. After 8 p.m., it is my family time, you know? And I try to balance that. Sometimes, yes, I would pick up an emergency call. And my home is private. My home is my home. I have a place where I meet with the people.
Probably they need,
you know?
Probably that's why governors need a home that's not so private.
Why?
Yes,
they are not human beings?
Well, you're a politician,
okay.
but you also...
So what? So I'm a politician. Today, when I'm a politician, you use me, but tomorrow when I want to get my retirement benefits, you start saying, oh, this is a wastage of public funds. Come on.
Okay, interesting perspective.
And you know, the issue is raising about balance is so important. Think about a county like Cliffy. And people of Cliffy, forgive me, I have worked for you for 6 years as your doctor, so I know you very well, and nothing personal. The governor of Cliffy, my own brother, Kingi, he bought a residence for 145 million shillings. Good. And we allowed him, okay, you have spent the money, he was investigated a little bit, and he was found, the due process was observed. But after that, now you can see in the budget of Cliffy, 214 million for the deputy governor's residence and another 500 million
that's completely
for the governor's residence, a governor who bought a house for 145 million. Talking about Kilifi, one of the poorest counties in this country. Do you know out of that 714 million, how many health centers can you construct? How many primary schools, Governor Kingi, can you construct? We must stop living large and pretending. And as Mheshimiwa says, the members of parliament who have a problem in retirement are the ones who lived a lie. For the years that I have been member of parliament, I not only live in Kakamega, but I live in my home, my rural home in Kakamega, not in Kakamega municipality. To the extent that now, when you are no longer in the office, you are comfortable to be in your home because there is flowing water, there is electricity, and there is food.
Before we move on that, okay, no, but I just want to weigh in something. I think now is a time where the control of budget should be doing her job. I like her. I know she's very tough. She's been very tough on this issue of Ward Development Fund and everything, but I think she really ought to be doing her job. That's number one. Number two, the Senate is actually doing a very good job now. I can tell you that. We have two bills. Actually, let me call them. The one which we already in the second reading, in fact, that we are discussing, is the issue of public participation, which was sponsored by Amos Wako. And I have another bill, which is a county oversight bill, which seek to include the citizens in the budget-making process. Before a budget is approved by a county assembly, the citizens ought to see, they need to understand the line item budget, this is what is budgeted for us. That is when you cannot afford to sneak in 200 million shillings to build a governor's residence. Yet, in the previous year, you did what? You bought it. You bought a house paying 145 million in the example of Kilifi. Once we involve our citizens, once we get them to know, these are the people who are paying. Look at our revenue in this country. Almost 45% of that revenue comes from income tax. It is us Kenyans who are paying. So what we need to do is, number one, agree that we cannot be living a lie. we cannot be living beyond our means. Number two, we must consult widely, consult with our stakeholders. Public participation is key. And it is not putting in an advertisement in a newspaper.
Okay.
It is actually going down there and ensuring that before you start construction or development of Keyan ward or maybe Eldamat ward, you've consulted the people of that ward and say, what is it that you want?
Thank you so much, Senator, for that. The story we're quoting is on page 6 of the Daily Nation. Now ministry puts cap on cost of governors' houses, and the breakdown of how different counties have spent money with regard to putting up those structures has been broken down there. You can go read it for yourself. And now it's an opportunity to give final comments. And of course, Senator, you wanted really to talk about the Mau issue, but before that, let's start with you, Mheshimiwa. Final comments.
I only want to appeal to the decision-making organs of the country to take the issue of banning and torching of our schools seriously. It's not a laughing matter. Our children are out there that are at the mercy of this kind of criminals who are in their midst. I remember a case, was it last year or before, where a school in Nairobi was banned, and we were told that the daughter, it was the daughter of a cabinet secretary. Nothing became of that case. It has died like that because apparently she was the daughter of a big man. Those criminal elements should be removed from the midst of our schools. They are no longer students. Those are criminals. Discipline precedes good performance in school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mheshimiwa Halwa. Finally, Senator.
Thank you very much. I think, likewise, I would like to comment on, just give my final thoughts on this issue of the school unrest. I think this is an opportunity for us leaders now to be able to mentor our youth. And I would like to call upon all the leaders working with the Ministry of Education to be able to go and meet these Form 4 leavers and be able to mentor them and try to guide them towards moving into selecting a career. That is issue number one. On the issue of Solai, I want to urge the government to really be sympathetic on the people who suffered. The 47 people who died, and the other body which was recovered now, which is making it around 48. We really need to think about these people. We also have got to avoid being complicit. We have to remember that these are the people who are supporting us. So everything we do as leaders must be to improve the standard of living of these people. And finally, I want to urge the government. You have started the eviction of the Mau, of the people who have encroached into the Mau forest. The biggest mistake this government will make is when they evict people from the national Mau and bring them into the Maasai Mau, then hell will break loose. I can tell you that. What we want to see is that these people, once they are removed from the forest, I want them to be, what do you call it? I want them to be resettled elsewhere. The Kalenjin community who have encroached into the Mau forest must be resettled. They are human beings. They are our people. So we must take care of them and ensure that they can be able to go where they either came from, or this government find a place to be able to resettle them.
Big mistake.
Number one, wait, I will say my point. Because they are human beings. Remove them from the Mau forest, take them back where they came from, resettle them from there. Those are the poor people. Number two, the rich who acquired land from the Mau forest. We have senators, we have governors, we have ministers in this government. We have members of parliament who are listed in the Mau task force report. Those people should give back all that land. You know, I don't want to name them, but they're there. If you want, in fact, these are public records, and I'm sure, Mheshimiwa, you know everyone who is there. So let us not pretend, because this issue of Mau forest is something which will divide this country completely.
It is
it is a very emotive issue. Right now, the Narok County, Narok town dries up, floods every year because of heavy rainfall because of the encroachment. We traversed the entire Mau forest complex. The amount of logging which is being supported by some complicity, when you look at the way the forest officers, and I'm happy that Keriako Tobiko is doing his job. I want to commend him on what he's doing, and I want to ask him, and I want to tell him, my brother, we are there to support you, to ensure. But finally, on this issue of Mau forest, it is not only the poor people who should be evicted, but the Bwenyenyes, those guys who got land. I'm telling you, if you read the list, you'll find people from Northeastern who got the land. Okay, what are they doing in Mau Forest? You'll find people from Central, you'll find people from Mombasa, all those people who are provincial administration, the one we were talking about before, people who are PCs, people who are DCs, people who are ministers, those people must be kicked out of Mau Forest.
Okay. I was just saying big mistake, my brother, because Ole Ntimama, wherever he is in the grave, is listening to this debate.
Yes.
There is a law that speaks to trespass in this country.
Yes.
If you start compensating people who have trespassed on other people's property or public property, you are delaying the process of evicting these people from the Mau,
evict them first.
and you are creating an excuse.
No, evict them first.
Can I? Majority of these people, in fact, all of them, have come from private property elsewhere or left private property elsewhere to come and just grab public land.
True.
Including the family of former President Daniel Arap Moi. He owns a tea estate in the Mau. Okay. You could do very well to remove.
Please allow me to say this.
Okay.
If you want, allow me just one point.
My brother, be able to finalize this debate today.
If you want to put a smile on the late Ole Ntimama, where he is, move everyone out of the Mau Forest.
Completely.
But at the same time, make sure that the process is humane.
Okay.
Because Ntimama was very caring.
Yes.
And I'm telling you, when this government completely evict everybody from the Mau Forest, Ntimama will be smiling on a daily basis.
And let's leave it there. Senator, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Senator Ledama Ole Kina from Narok, and Deputy Party Leader, Ford Kenya, the Honorable Boni Halwale, for helping us look at the headlines this morning. Very interesting discussions this morning. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Power Breakfast still continues a discussion about that game yesterday and what to expect at the World Cup finals between France and Croatia is coming up with Willis Raburu. Do stand by for that as well. The Power Breakfast is still the hashtag to use. My name is Fred Indemule. Good morning.